our bodies, what affects our minds as well. And today I have got Dr. Annie Martins in
Hey,
the studio with me. Good
good
evening.
evening,
Oh wow, new
Sophia.
glasses.
No,
Wait, are these the same old glasses?
yeah,
Wow, they look different.
mm,
Might be a new hairstyle.
yeah, maybe it's the hairstyle.
Mm-hmm. Very
Mm,
nice, very nice. If you'd like to
yeah.
catch these glasses, the famed glasses, all you need to do is join us because we are streaming live up on YouTube. Find us Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Okay. All right. So remember, you can join this conversation by sending WhatsApp messages in to 0809 4440981. You can also take things over to Twitter using the hashtag smoothhealth981, or you can join us on the YouTube live and leave your comments there, and I'll be able to catch your thoughts and your questions on that platform as well. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about stress and its attendant effects, and I really love that we've got this happening, Dr. Anu. So,
Mm.
first of all, just to let you know that Dr. Anu Martins is a health management consultant. She's been with us for the past few weeks here on Smooth Health, and you all love her. I know you do. You've been sending me the messages to prove it. So,
Yay.
Dr. Anna, let's talk about stress because we live in Lagos.
Mm.
That's about all I need to say. So,
The stress capital of the
I'm
world,
telling you,
maybe.
we live in Lagos, and that is that. But first of all, let's just start off with the basics as we like to do. What is stress, and what are the some common symptoms of stress?
Great question. Great topic, Shopper, by the way. You choose the most amazing topics, I
Thank you.
think. So, stress is so interesting. They're about to talk about stress because it's a word that we use probably several times every day.
Mhm.
And so there's actually a WHO definition, which I found very interesting.
Oh, okay.
That stress is so important that the World Health Organization also had to create its own definition just to sort of standardize things.
Oh, wow.
And what they say is that stress can be defined as a state of worry or mental tension caused by a difficult situation.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm just thinking about life in Lagos.
So that's like this straight up, like in a nutshell.
Okay.
But from a medical perspective, when we talk about stress, the most important aspect of it is the body's response. So we call it the stress response.
Okay.
And that's when we're going to go into the symptoms we talk about. So the
Mm.
stress response is when a person has a perceived difficult situation,
Mm-hmm.
perceived because it's different from person to person. What may be difficult to you won't be difficult to me.
Right.
But the body's response usually, and to really simplify because it's sort of complex, is that there are several endocrine organs that signal each other in the brain. The hypothalamus signals the pituitary gland, which signals the adrenals, and basically they release what we call the stress hormones. Adrenaline, which most of us are aware of.
Mm-hmm. Which is not bad in short bursts, right?
No, none of them are bad. They're all there for a reason, right? And they have good functions.
Right.
So there are three that form a cocktail: adrenaline, cortisol, and noradrenaline or norepinephrine.
Okay.
Right? And what they do individually and together, so that we don't get too technical, is that they enhance a lot of the body's functions. One is that they increase breathing, the rate of breathing, so that your cells get a lot more oxygen.
Okay.
They increase the heart rate so that it's more efficient. Your cells also get the whatever it is that they need. They cause a release of glucose, which is the body's form of energy, from the liver into the bloodstream,
All right.
so that glucose is available for the cells to take up and use, right? Um, they also increase the blood pressure. So they increase the blood pressure so that blood is pumped more efficiently around the body. Another thing they do is that they redirect the flow of blood to the muscles, particularly the muscles in the extremities, your arms and your legs.
So basically, from all I've heard now, basically they should be turning you into a superhuman being.
Exactly. So
Okay.
you've heard of the three F's: flee, freeze, or fight.
Wow, I've not heard of this one. I mean, I've
Really?
I've heard of flight or fight. Yeah,
Yeah.
when you
Well,
said
not
three F's, I thought it was the third one.
and then F maybe doesn't always sound so good because of what they use it for. But yeah, so the three F's, the flight, freeze, or fight response is actually the stress response,
Okay.
and that's what these three hormones do. They get the body ready. So there's oxygen, there's glucose, there's blood moving to all the muscles. Your arms and legs are ready for action
Hmm.
so that you can approach whatever challenge or overcome whatever difficulty you're facing at that point in
Hmm.
time. So for scientists that
So
okay,
hold on. So,
yeah, yeah,
so you know all those stories that they tell and the videos that you see of a mother lifting a car
yeah.
off of
So
her little child.
yeah,
It's that.
yes. So
Okay.
it's possible because of the stress response.
So that's not necessarily a bad thing
No, it's not.
long term. I don't mind being a superhuman long term. So if this is the way you are telling me about, it sounds great.
No,
What's not
no.
great about it?
So in short bursts, it's perfect. So like the example you just gave, a woman has a baby trapped under a car. The stress response kicks into gear.
Hmm.
Suddenly she has superhuman strength. She can lift the car and save her baby. That's fantastic. But imagine if that you have that response day in, day out. Your heart is beating faster. You're breathing faster. You have you have excess glucose in your blood,
Mm-hmm.
and you have that consistently.
Mm-hmm.
The body is not supposed to function that way. It's supposed to be a one-off. So when you have that on a consistent basis, then you begin to have the detrimental effects.
Okay, and what do those look like?
Good. So we'll sort of take it system by system, right? Some of the most common that we see in this environment, people generally feeling tired. You're feeling tired like all the time, or you generally feel unwell. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Everyone.
Look at dawning realization on my face.
Too
Mm-hmm.
soon, no.
Okay.
So, and this is that I said is very commonplace. So, feeling tired almost all the time,
Mm.
generally feeling unwell. You feel like you're sick, but you don't really know why. But you're not so sick either, right? And then you have things like tremors. You feel dizzy. You have headaches a lot.
Eye twitches.
Yeah,
Ah.
it's possible. It's
Okay.
possible.
We're listening. We're listening.
Yeah, and then we go into the you could have digestive problems. So peptic ulcer is very common around here.
Mm.
But let's go just take it a step back. Things like indigestion, when you feel like you have hyperacidity, your stomach hurts, that could be a symptom of stress. A few people also have the converse, which is sometimes they poo more than, it's not an infection, but
Okay.
because their digestive system is upset, they could poo more
So like
regularly.
consistent diarrhea or just
Or in that moment or during that period, it's one of the
Okay.
symptoms that somebody could have.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Other symptoms become a bit more serious. So you have cardiovascular symptoms, that's anything that affects the heart and the circulatory system. So raised blood pressure, which could even lead to hypertension, which is also very common in this environment. Chest pain, chest tightness, feeling like your heart is beating really fast.
Constant headaches.
Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. Yeah,
Yeah.
constant headaches. Yes, and sometimes even if you have like a tension headache, sometimes it feels like it synchronizes with your heartbeat with every pump of
Oh
your. It's like
wow.
you have this beating sensation in your head or with every movement.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so those are some of the symptoms of stress. Then of course, but if you want to categorize it, you have physical symptoms, which are the ones we just described. Then you have mental symptoms.
Okay.
This is the way it affects emotions. It's a big deal here. When I mention some of them, immediately just imagine yourself on the streets in Lagos. Irritability, anger, people are screaming at each other all the time. You just do something very small. Just
Oh wow, that kind of casual violence that we see.
Exactly.
We can actually link it to stress.
Oh yes, definitely. So emotions are unstable. Then you have the reverse side, which is also still a reflection of stress. Feeling sad, crying more than usual, or generally being emotionally unstable. Then it takes us also into some of the social and behavioral symptoms, because once you start having emotional and mental symptoms, you could also have social symptoms.
Okay.
People withdrawing from social contact.
Ah.
So you have a friend that's stressed, you don't see her much anymore. Why? Because she's just trying to limit the triggers.
So wait, hold on. Can we link stress to depression?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Do they go hand in glove?
Stress goes hand in glove with depression, with anxiety, and with a lot of other issues.
Oh jeez. Wow.
Yeah, it's actually a serious topic.
Oh wow. There's
Yeah.
and we only have half an hour, so we are definitely from what you have, all that you have said, we're not going to be able to cover all of this,
No,
all of its
no.
effects, but at least
We can touch.
let's touch on some of
Yeah,
them. Yes.
yeah. So those are some of the mental issues and emotional issues, and then the behavioral issues, which is isolation, withdrawing from your friends and from your family. Um, some mental health issues like anxiety and depression that we mentioned are strongly linked with chronic stress, and by chronic stress we mean long-standing and persistent stress. So yeah, then very important, substance abuse is also something that we see a lot of.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Because remember, it's behavioral. You
Mm,
remember, if someone is perceived to be in a state of stress, the person will be looking for relief. Some of the easier ways to find that relief is from medication,
mm.
abuse of medication or abuse of substances, or behavioral addictive behavior like
Such as?
betting.
Ah, oh wow.
Yes,
Oh.
so imagine you're stressed in
Dr.
Lagos.
Anu
Let's
Martins.
go there.
You are shaking some tables because right now this is just the whole foundation of Lagos society
Yeah,
that you have spoken about.
yeah.
Are we a
People,
city under stress?
I won't say that so that I won't have, but potentially it's if we put a band of experts together, I'm sure that the conclusion would be that we're more stressed than maybe in other environments. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, what is going to happen is we're going to take a quick break, just let you sit with that information, and then we'll be back for the second half of the Smooth Health Show here on the Smooth Drive.
Smooth health on the drive.
Wow.
Do you bet?
Wow. I don't bet. I don't bet. Oh, no, no, no. I like to keep my money. Oh,
no, but I
no.
think the betting thing is like, oh my god, if I just blow, man, if
Oh,
I
no,
just hit
no.
it, you get.
No. Too
No, for
sensible
those
for
that are
that.
into it, I don't bet. So.
No, I can't do it. I cannot do it. I am not a better.
Indeed,
See,
do the
you know how there's some things, there's some, this is why I know there's God, because there's some things that, if I had been allowed, I would have been a master criminal.
You?
Oh, yes. My mind goes, what was it? On 1 5 at 5, I talked about how in Nigeria we should have, how we have EQ, IQ, that we
Mm-hmm.
should have CQ,
What's CQ?
criminal.
Criminal
Quotient.
quotient.
Yes. And I would have quite
Mm.
a high CQ. I truly believe.
Why do you think that?
Oh, no, no, no. I will look at something, I'll be like, we could do it this way. I've been told I'm quite
But if,
criminally minded.
but if that's the case, then I think that's sort of why we have someone like 419 guys and 19 guys. Because you guys are like so smart, you think of it in different ways.
So that's the thing. Mine is just to think of different ways of doing things. But should I ever actually try and do them, I get found out very, very quickly. Very easily.
Yeah, so it's not for you.
Not for me at all. All right, so let's see what messages we have because they are a coming. Okay, this is 1 5. Let's get back into the conversation. Smooth 98.1. This is Smooth Health on the Smooth Drive with Sope Martins. I've got Dr. Anu Martins in with me until 5:45. So we're going to make the most of having her in the studio. Make sure you send your WhatsApp messages in with your comments and your thoughts, your questions, 20809 4440981 as we talk about stress and its attendant effects. So before the break, Dr. Anu Martins was telling us all the different things that stress can lead to and all the different symptoms, behavioral, physical, mental as well. Thank you. And it just had me thinking about how that seems like normal life here in Lagos, and perhaps we should redefine our definition of normal. Anyway, moving on now. The one thing that I want to look at now is really long-term health effects
Mm.
of stress. So, for example, can stress cause chronic health conditions
Mm-hmm.
like maybe heart disease, diabetes? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Can it?
Yeah,
Oh wow.
I'm sure you know, maybe on some level.
Mm.
So yes, that's a short answer. Stress can cause, um, even though from a medical perspective, um, scientists and researchers are still a bit cautious to use the word cause. So
Okay.
what the framing would be that it's a major risk factor that contributes to the development of chronic conditions.
Ah.
So being stressed on a long-term basis predisposes people to heart disease and to diabetes.
Oh wow.
So we talked about the symptoms of heart disease. We talked about the palpitations. You feel your heart beating faster. Your blood
Mm-hmm.
pressure rises. Imagine if you have that stress response day in, day out. After a while, potentially, especially if the person has other predisposing factors, the blood pressure may decide to stay raised.
I mean, I suppose that's your heart working overtime
Yes,
for a
it
long
is.
period of time.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So hypertension is a cardiovascular disease. It can then lead to other, complications,
Mm.
things like stroke, which is why so stroke is a cardiovascular accident and it affects the brain. So what then happens is that if someone develops hypertension, which is usually linked to stress, there are other factors like familial, hereditary, ethnicity, and what have you. Potentially developing hypertension can then lead to other conditions like stroke. Another heart condition that stress is directly related to is something called angina. Angina is something that it's a condition that affects the blood vessels of the heart,
Mm.
and when those blood vessels constrict, the blood isn't circulated well to the heart itself, and then the person has chest pain. So it's like having a mini heart attack.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that's a major thing. Heart attacks too. On the extreme end, stress
Mm.
can induce heart attacks. By the way, it causes other cardiovascular conditions like the hypertension we talked about and the angina. They can progress to heart attacks.
Now, what about our immune system?
If we go there, very technical. We
Okay.
haven't even know we jumped diabetes. Diabetes too is
Diabetes. Yes.
intricately linked with stress. So they're still trying to drill down type 2 diabetes, which is where there's excess sugar in the blood and there's not enough insulin to bring it down. And there's only specific finding so far is that researchers think that what persistent stress does, is that it affects the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin. So they stop working properly.
Mm.
So the body doesn't produce enough insulin, which is so not having enough insulin is one of the causes of type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
So that's how stress is linked to it. Then on the flip side, for those that are already diabetic, the stress response interferes with the way the body manages excess glucose in the system. So remember when we said
the glucose
earlier,
that your liver
yes, has
releases.
released exactly.
Okay.
So it's there in the system already. And in diabetes, the body isn't metabolizing it properly in the first place. So imagine if that person is stressed.
Oh no.
Ha.
Oh no.
So it's
That's not a
like
good scenario.
exactly, it's not. So it affects the way you manage such a person, the level and the dosage of the medication they are on, or the insulin that they are on. So that's how stress can it's either a major risk factor for developing diabetes or worsening or making it more difficult to manage diabetes. Now, for the autoimmune and for the immune response that you talked about, the major way that stress affects the immune response is that so on the short term, and this is something I'm sure we can all relate with. You know how if you're stressed, or if someone you know is stressed, and the person is always coming down with like a common cold, always sniffling, that's a direct effect of stress. So what stress does is that there's a particular, there are white blood cells. White blood cells are the cells that fight infection.
Yes.
So there's a particular type of white blood cell called lymphocytes. Part of the stress response reduces the amount of lymphocytes in the blood. So if
these warriors just get decimated by stress.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Or the body doesn't produce enough of it because the body is stressed.
Right.
And so if the person has a viral infection from the common cold, or could have like a cold sore, which is also of a viral origin.
Lymphocytes. They're
they're
not
not
there.
there.
Oh.
So yeah, so that's a very common and relatable way. But there are also chronic conditions caused by the immune response that can be exacerbated by stress. So when you talk about things like arthritis, in the long
Mm.
term, it's
Mm.
because there's inflammation. So what? Okay, so let me take it back a bit.
One day, people on Smooth Health, we're just going to spend half an hour talking about inflammation.
Ha.
We will spend a whole half hour talking about inflammation. Get ready for it. One day soon.
Inflammation underlies so many issues. So what
Ah,
happens is that stress interferes with the body's inflammatory response,
okay.
and the body could potentially be in a consistent state of inflammation. So what that then does is that it affects different organs. So like in the joints and in the bones, what it then causes potentially is arthritis. Um, in the brain, something that it could cause is Alzheimer's disease. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
Asthma that we talked about just a few weeks ago is also affected by stress. So
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Diabetes that we talked about, heart
Yes.
disease. Yeah. So the inflammatory response is abnormal when the body is consistently stressed, and then it predisposes to all these diseases we just talked about.
Wow. Stress has married many husbands. I don't know how else to put it,
Why is
people.
stress a woman?
Stress has married many wives. There we go. That's
I think so.
okay. So, taking it over to WhatsApp, this message in from Chimezie says, "I love the WHO's definition of stress. Nevertheless, I believe we should have our own definition in Nigeria, and it can simply be defined as working and living in Lagos." And he says, "Thank you, Doc, for the info on stress."
Thanks, Trinity.
All right, now moving on. So, the one that's a lot of us, you know how we all say that you can sleep when you're dead. Mm. I've never agreed with that. I've never agreed with that saying. Now let's talk about stress and sleep, and
Ha.
our sleep quality, no less.
Oh yeah. So sorry, I forgot to mention that in terms of symptoms because it's also something a lot of people can relate with. So what happens if you take a person having a stressful day? What you find is that night already the person has difficulty falling asleep
Okay.
and potentially difficulty staying asleep.
Right.
And imagine if that recurs on a daily basis. So you have the average Lagosian, maybe Chimizi. He's had a stressful day, and then he gets home and he's just thinking about maybe his crazy boss in the office, or his babe that stressed him, or his wife, or something, or the fact that he hasn't yet blown like he should have, which he will, or he probably has. And then he's thinking about it, so he can't relax enough to fall asleep. And then when he falls asleep, potentially he wakes up
He's haunted
because
by visions of the
yes,
boss in his
yes.
sleep.
So if you want to take it technically, one of the things that stress does is that interferes with the stages of sleep. Two important stages of sleep that leave you feeling really rested. One is deep sleep, and the other is REM, that's rapid eye movements. That's a state of sleep in which you're dreaming. A lot of sleep researchers will tell us that during REM is when your body stores memories, it processes emotions, and what have you. That's why they show up as
Oh,
dreams.
that's quite interesting because I do remember that one of the symptoms of sleep deprivation is that you start losing your memory. At least your short-term memory. I think.
Yeah. So that takes us to some other mental symptoms which I hadn't mentioned, but they're linked directly to sleep. So you have someone who doesn't fall asleep easily, and then when they do sleep, they don't sleep well. They wake up feeling unsatisfied. They wake up feeling tired. So it then leads to other symptoms that cause more stress and creates a loop. So the person loses concentration, finds it difficult to focus. You have all these emotional triggers we talked about: irritability, aggression. You have the sadness, especially if it's prolonged, that could then potentially lead to depression.
Yeah.
The lack of productivity, because if you're tired, there's only so much you can do.
Yes.
So how it affects sleep is that what stress does is that it affects sleep, and then having all those symptoms then stress the person out a lot more, and it creates
wow, it's like
cycle.
a very vicious loop.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, now Olusheyi Olaniyan says, "Oh, she's back. Yes, Dr. Anu Martins is back. O'Shea goes on to say stress is part of a life, and how one deals with this is critical, is what
Yeah.
Oluseyi says. All right. So now we've only got a couple of minutes till the end of Smooth Out. So let's talk about strategies. So, what are
Mm.
some effective strategies for managing stress so that you can improve your overall health?
Great question. Um, so the four A's for managing stress.
You like letters?
Funny enough, I don't.
You don't?
I think people like it. So I'm like, let me come and see. And
Three
I
F's, four A's.
and I think what it does, I actually don't like them.
Oh,
But I
really?
think what it does is that there are a lot of people, I'm not really one of them. It
Mm.
helps them to remember. They're like, okay,
Mnemonics, yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
So there's the avoid. So the first A is to avoid. So avoid triggers. So if Shopware triggers you, which I know is not possible.
I'm not sure we
actually.
can do that. But
Yeah. So avoid triggers as much as
Mhm.
possible, either in terms of people or
Mm.
places or topics. So if football is not your thing, stay away. Politics, stay away from such discussions.
Okay,
The
stay away
news,
from social media.
yes, the
Mm.
news or social media, everybody seems like their life is perfect, which isn't true, but it can trigger you. Stay away. There's also the adapt. So things like Lagos life that we talked about.
Mm.
You're in traffic, you know you're going to be in traffic. Try and do something productive if it's possible. Listen to your favorite radio station, Smooth 981. Listen to music. Take a course. Listen to a podcast. Do something.
Regional, I have an audiobook playing maybe.
Yes, exactly, that sort of thing. So you're adapting, and in that way, you're making the most of that situation.
Mm.
Then there's something called alter. So alter your reframe your thinking. So one of the things about stress is that you can't change. We can't do anything about Lagos traffic, about the craziness that there is, but you can adopt a. So that's why there's so much noise now about gratitude. So just be grateful. So I'm grateful that I'm sitting down here. I'm healthy. I'm talking with Shokbe
Yeah.
in an AC studio.
Oh my days! You know what? I didn't know about the four A's, but I can tell you that I've been doing that. So, they should make a series of me in my car, but that was before now. Now I'm a changed person. As soon as I find myself about to do this, I say, you know what? I'm really grateful. Everybody is good. Everything is fine. I'm adapting. I'm adapting. No, I'm altering rather. I'm altering. Thank
Very
you. Thank
important.
you.
Yeah. And then maybe just a list so I don't lose anything in particular in terms of strategy. So like sleep hygiene is very important. Sleep hygiene is where you make sure that your environment is conducive for sleep. So there are many things that you can do. Don't eat late, don't eat heavy, don't exercise just before bed, keep your devices out of the room. Don't watch TV late at night. Keep your room as cool as you can. That's how you can get some sleep. Do nothing else in your room except sleep. And that other thing we can mention.
I'm very silent here.
Because people do everything. People are working in their rooms. Because what happens is that your mind then you
associates it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So you need that mental break so that you can relax and sleep. And then there are other things, exercising. So there are other things which are like should be part of a healthy lifestyle to help combat stress. Exercising. So exercising isn't just for the way you look. It also helps with the way you feel because the body releases endorphins. Endorphins are chemicals in the brain that make you feel good. So working out is really good. Eating healthy is good because it helps with all those cardiovascular things. It helps with diabetes. Socializing in a healthy manner. So when you feel stressed, don't separate or isolate yourself from your loved ones. Actually reach out to them, express yourself, and just talking about your issues would help relieve the stress.
All right, and we have come to the end of Smooth Health with Dr. Anu Martins joining me for today's show.
I feel
By
like
the way,
we barely scratched the surface.
we barely scratched the surface. We may have to do sleep 2.0, sleep 3.0, stress 2.0, stress 3.0. But what you can do actually is follow her on Instagram because she's on Instagram, people, at Dr. Anu Martins. That's it, at Dr. Anu Martins. If you need to find her through someone else, you can find me. She's in my stories right now. I'm at Sope Martins up on Instagram. And you can catch the replay youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos. Dr. Anu Martins, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Shakwa.
And barely scratching the surface of what stress does to us because there's so much that stress does.
Yeah.
And yeah, it would take a day at the very least to talk about it. But well, you did a fantastic job with the
Thank
time that we
you.
had.
Thank you,
Thank
Chopin.
you.
Always nice speaking with you.
All right. Well, coming up is going to be great music. Watch out for John Legend and Shola Ama. Oh my gosh. When was the last time you heard her? You're going to be hearing her right here on the Smooth Drive.
Sure, Anna is good.
Every
She disappeared
Thursday
for a
at
bit.